6 of one, half dozen of the other.
I did not know that.
Me neither.
So unfortunately, we haven't seen any planes lifting off or landing. They do land quite commonly.
Island moving.
But the planes, because of the shortness of the runway, they end up over the water pretty low. And some of the boats, some of the ships in the harbor are actually taller than these planes are low. We learned this the hard way. In the 1940s. You see how we didn't come directly south? We went a long way around it. There's a plane taking off towards the other way. These white buoys we passed around, they say keep out. And they mean just that. These white buoys, they say keep out, and they mean just that. When we built the airport 2 years later, one of the planes was taking off really low, and one of our public ferries, which we can't see right now, but I will point it out to you later, was a little too close to the runway, and they collided. The plane clipped the top of the ferry, heavy damage to the ferry, although no one was killed. Unfortunately, the plane was destroyed, and the pilot was killed. So we learned that lesson the hard way. We established the keep out zone. It is a very serious federal offense for any vessel to enter in there. If Captain Devin were to lose his mind right now and take a right turn, he and I would both, I'm not even driving, we would both lose our driver's license for the boat, our driver's license on the land, and receive a $10,000 fine each. And we'd never work in the floating industry again. It's a serious deal. I took the bus here today. I don't know what $10,000 looks like. So I appreciate that Devin took us the right way.
I can maybe do it live.
All right, everybody, we have now reached the islands. Welcome, everybody. If you look out the right windows, you can see Hanlon's Point. This island is so called for one of the most famous families that had settled there. The Hanlons came over from Ireland in the 1800s.
Good to know.
None of this island, no. So the Hanlons came over from Ireland in the 1800s. They used to live here. They opened up a hotel here on the island. And over the next couple of years, Hanlon's Point became known as Toronto's first major entertainment district. So you're going to have to put on your imagination caps for this one, but instead of beautiful park space,
oh my God,
100 years ago, you would have seen casinos, hotels, bars, restaurants, nightclubs. You would have seen an amusement park with a roller coaster that snaked around the shoreline. There was a 10,000 capacity baseball stadium. There was even a circus with horses that were trained to climb up real high and then dive into the water. This was a strange time. We actually got the nickname from American tourists, the Coney Island of the North. It was definitely an interesting time. A fun story about that baseball stadium I mentioned, it was at that stadium that a famous baseball player, Babe Ruth, hit his first ever professional home run. He hit the ball and flew right out of the stadium and landed here in the water, but was never found. So they say if found today, this ball would be worth over $1 million. And I do have to ask you to stay in the boat. It's illegal to swim here due to the heavy boat traffic, but most importantly, 100 years ago, baseballs were made of pigskin. So it's almost certain that it has dissolved since then.
What a fucking view.
Having said that, I pass by here every hour of every day. So I keep my eyes peeled, and Captain Devin is fully aware that if I see that wall, he's finishing the tour on his own.
I'm already jealous already.
Hanlon's Point really reached its heyday in the 1920s, especially with American tourists. They were coming up here looking for something they could not get at home, and that was alcohol. Prohibition was in full swing. Alcohol was completely illegal, and we did have prohibition in Ontario. People think we didn't, but we did. It was just very lenient. We made too much money exporting beer, so our government said, you can make the beer, just don't drink it. And that went about as well as you'd expect. We drank it all. And we kept another thing legal because our doctors thought it was the cure for everything. Common cold, toothache, stomachache, even heartache. And that was whiskey. In the year 1921, Ontario doctors prescribed 400,000 prescriptions of whiskey. Just for context, the population of Toronto in 1921 was 500,000.
Why?
That was a lot of whiskey. We had a lot of American tourists coming up here getting real sick, especially on weekends. going home a little bit sicker than when they got here. But you don't see any of these buildings, and I promise you I'm not lying. In the 1930s, the Great Depression hit, and we had no money. There was no money to party. The 1940s rolled around, we had World War II, and we had better things to think about. But the death blow to Hamlet's Point really came in 1954 with Hurricane Hazel. This was a storm so bad, they retired the name Hazel. Will never be another. One of the few hurricanes to make it this far north and inland. It did a lot of damage to the city of Toronto, but it just destroyed these islands. Nothing left. And instead of rebuilding, they decided to turn it into the beautiful park space that you see today. Kind of a cool story for what is now basically just our backyard. So I'll draw your attention to this group of boats out the left windows. This is a private yacht club. It's the very creatively named Island Yacht Club. Because you see, it's a yacht club on an island. I feel like they could have tried a little harder for that one. But they do have an interesting tradition. They like to name their boats after their owner's profession. So there's a game you can play. If you see a name of the boat, try to guess what an owner does. Some of them are quite easy. There's one called the lawyer's boat. Earlier. Actually, that's by that. By an investment banker. So there's a boat called the Siesta. And I have to assume that person just doesn't have a job? I don't know. But my two favorites, there's one, this is just kind of morbid, it's owned by someone who works for the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, the LCBO, and he called his boat the Cirrhosis of the River.
Oh my god. Oh.
It's, yeah, I'd have called mine Aquaholic, but that's his boat. My absolute favorite though, and this was actually written up in a magazine for boaters. This boat was owned by a couple, two doctors. One was a psychologist, and the other was a proctologist. And they called their boat the Heads or Tails.
Heads or
I get to tell that joke every single hour.
That's the best one.
I love my job. Alright guys, we are now traveling down a channel known as Long Pond. And if you look to your left and your right, you'll notice that a lot of these islands are a lot less built up. There's no roads or people or bicycles or anything like that. And that's because 4 out of the 15 islands are wildlife preservations. We have a ton of wildlife here. You probably won't see much of it if you go to the islands because they are all confined to the wildlife reservations and humans aren't allowed to go there. But you'll see things like mute swan, trumpeter swan, snowy white egret, black cormorant. You'll see pigeons, duck, geese, seagull, white-tailed deer, beaver, muskrat, coyote, pigeon, turtle, the snake. Beautiful. Lots of stuff. We actually have a bit of a goose problem here on the island. If so, I apologize. They can be beautiful, but they're also very, I'm supposed to say territorial. That's the nice way. But I prefer evil, because they will chase you, and they will enjoy it. And every one of them produces 1 pound of fertilizer every day. If you catch my gap. We have 10,000 of them here on the islands. That's a lot of fertilizer.
Do you know how much a pound is?
And it's illegal for us to hunt or hurt them. Completely protected by the law. They have no problem hurting us. But we can't hurt them. Can't hunt them, nothing. But we did have an idea on how we were going to control the population. We thought, we'll release raccoons on the island. Because